Zoro and Katakuri, two characters who inhabit a special place on their crew's first commander. Both are characters well respected within the One Piece community for their strength and accomplishments within the series. But what would happen if these two came to blows? Well, in today's video, that's exactly what we'll find out. What's up guys, Restless Gambly here, and in today's video, I want to put Zoro up against the likes of Katakuri. Can Zoro defeat the character Luffy struggles so much against in Whole Cake Island? Well, that's what we'll be talking about today. Like always, make sure to like, subscribe, and watch until the end. As a veteran of the channel, being the first Sanji victim I went over, I think we should go over him first. When it comes to strength, Katakuri seems to be very prominent in this department. Throughout his entire fight with Luffy except for near the end, he would utterly overpower him in every single encounter. In chapter 879, the first chapter of their fight, it is made crystal clear that Katakuri acts as if he's a better version of Luffy. Luffy uses hot Gatling and Katakuri matches every single punch, then proceeds to do the same thing back to Luffy, absolutely slamming him. Then Luffy tries to use Hawk Stamp, Katakuri dodges that and literally uses the same thing back to Luffy. And then after that, Luffy tries to go with strength, as Katakuri says, but Katakuri easily overpowers it with his own mochi version of Gear 3. And so he continues to just violate Luffy over and over and over again. Next time Luffy tries to clash with Katakuri, his armament haki and strength is so potent that it overpowers Luffy as well as hurts his hands. Once Katakuri had gotten hit by Luffy and not being able to withstand his attacks, he goes on to use a named attack power Mochi, where he spawned Mochi hands in the air with armament haki and punched Luffy with it. At that point, it did the most damage in the fight, as you can see Luffy's eyes start to white out. We skip about 10 chapters and we get into the big boy strength feats. He uses Thrust Mochi on Luffy, who got paralyzed by an outsider, and it deletes almost half of his torso. Then he continues to have a slight upper hand on Luffy, then Luffy uses Snake Man. Katakuri then uses a new attack, his strongest, Buzz Cut Mochi. But sadly, even after 2 of these, he couldn't take Luffy down for good. So it's safe to say that he's earned his strongest crew member on the Big Mom Pirates title, because these strength feats are nothing to laugh at. Something else that isn't anything to laugh at is Katakuri's speed. This is probably Katakuri's best stat, tied with versatility, but we'll get into that later. Of course, since the beginning of the fight, he had Luffy beating this stat like by far, intercepting Gear 2 attacks from Luffy and blitzing him on multiple occasions. But the speed feats get even crazier as we continue the fight. Luffy enters his fastest form, Gear 4 Snake Man, and at first Katakuri gets caught off guard by his tomfoolery. But as soon as he found out what was going on, he was easily able to react, dodge and weave the attacks going after him. But as Luffy locks into the battle, they go blow for blow until the final clash where Luffy comes out victorious. Another thing to add to Katakuri's speed is something he does with his Devil Fruit, where he turns into a Mochi Donut and rolls towards the enemy in order to use Buzz Cut Mochi. But to be completely fair, we have to go over his weakness. The weakness being when his future sight is turned off. Once it's turned off, he's able to be tagged by base fatigue Luffy, so yeah. We went over 2 stats that Katakuri definitely prospers in, but now we have to talk about 2 really questionable stats, those being durability and endurance. These are the stats we usually clown on in this channel, but today I want to be fully clear about what is going on so it doesn't sound like I'm being super biased and making fun of Katakuri for no reason. In chapter 883, after Luffy sees Katakuri's face, Katakuri gets mad and his future sight turns off. Luffy and Katakuri clash, Luffy gets overpowered, and Katakuri goes for a second punch. But then Luffy reacts to it before he even throws it and kicks bro in the chin. This shit had Katakuri bleeding out to no end. Then he took attacks from Gear 4 after that. So far, Katakuri has taken damage from a base Luffy who's heavily fatigued and almost died right before that. But oh boy, does it not get any better. Because we get into a recent cover story where Caesar Clown used a gas to make Katakuri think Oven was his enemy and vice versa. So let's just look at what the hell happened here. Katakuri punches Oven and he's bleeding, okay. But then Oven punches Katakuri and bruh, look at the blood flying off this guy's face. Mind you, Oven's AP isn't even enough to one-shot Pound, and Katakuri is bleeding off of that. Now, in his defense, he wasn't using Haki, but that's just it. Oven isn't using Haki as well. If you aren't catching on, if Katakuri gets blitzed by anyone who has higher AP than f***ing Oven, he's getting slammed. But we've went over his speed, so that's a hard thing to accomplish. Katakuri's endurance is a little bit of a meme as well, and that's because of this infamous chart showing how many attacks were thrown in Luffy vs Katakuri. In the chart, we see Katakuri threw 123 attacks at Luffy, but Luffy hit Katakuri 13 times before he lost. And so of course it would be such a meme, because not only has Katakuri gotten an advantage on Luffy with the thrust mochi, which we'll talk about in a second, but also some of these attacks were literally from base Luffy. It's kinda pathetic. But yeah, let's revisit thrust mochi. Luffy gets hit by it because one of Katakuri's sisters paralyzed him, but then he stabs himself regularly without the spinning. And now everybody wants to tell me Katakuri was weakened. Katakuri stabbed himself. Bro, he didn't even do the same damage to himself as he did to Luffy. But you know what? Nah. Let's just move on to the next stat. Hacks and versatility. Katakuri is literally the most versatile character in One Piece. He has amazing armament haki, advanced observation haki, conquers haki, a weapon, a devil fruit, awakened powers, and a ton of battle experience. But hold the f*** up. I do not want y'all to take all this bullshit in his kit too seriously, because if you were to, you could argue he's top 10 in the verse. But the truth is, he's not. There are other characters who just completely outscale him in everything, making his bag literally useless. Just like in King vs Katakuri. You can argue Katakuri has better weapon mastery, devil fruit mastery, battle experience, battle IQ, more haki, but King still slams because he completely outscales him. I think that's the thing Katakuri fans like to brag about and use to overrate him, the bag of Katakuri. But they aren't realizing that the bag is useless when someone is just 10 times stronger and faster than you. If this is applicable to this battle will be discussed later, but with all that said, we've talked about Katakuri. And now, let's go into the minority hunter, King of Hell, Zoro. This is Zoro's debut fight on the channel, and as Restless Gambler, you'd probably expect me to downplay him because I'm a Sanji fan. Well, think again, because that just wouldn't be fair to him. When it comes to strength, oh boy does Zoro prosper. Where we can start is on the rooftop where he fought against the likes of Big Mom and Kaido. Near the middle of the 10 chapter fight, Zoro jumped into the air after cutting a blast breath and went in for an attack at Kaido. This attack was about to be so potent that Big Mom screams out saying that Zoro doesn't have an ordinary sword and that Kaido should watch out. This meant that if Zoro had connected with this attack, it definitely would have damaged Kaido to some extent, even greater than Luffy's at that moment, who had hit Kaido with a barrage of advanced armament haki attacks. Zoro then goes on to actually damage Kaido with his Great Dragon Twister, having other characters acknowledge that Kaido's scales were actually penetrated. Then Zoro performs his best feat on the rooftop. After breaking all of his bones to the Double Ocean Sovereignty, he gets up, uses Ashura, Farce of Death, and this attack literally leaves a scar on Kaido, something the combined efforts of the 9 Scabbers could not match. He then revives himself to full HP and fights King the Wildfire. He then fails to damage King with his flames on, even with the attack that damaged Kaido. Even more, he used a stronger attack set by himself and it still did nothing to King. Then Zoro unlocks advanced Conqueror's Haki, which means his attacks are even stronger than before, which was stronger than on the rooftop that could damage Kaido, and now King is completely on the defensive. In fact, King starts defending even with his flames on, implying that there is a chance that advanced Conqueror's Haki can penetrate said durability. Regardless, the time Zoro slash King is with his flames off, and King is able to only take 3 of these. So, when it comes to strength, Zoro is definitely top tier. Next is speed. People like to underrate Zoro's speed because obviously he doesn't match up to the likes of Sanji, but in reality, he's still a real speed demon. Starting from more minor speed feats, we've seen him react to Big Mom's attacks and Kaido's attacks. But the big boy feat I want to get into is him clashing and then getting past Kaido with his Ashura attack. This isn't a blitz like people say it is, but what I will say is that it shows slight relativity between him and Hybrid Kaido. So yeah, stop underrating my boy. Durability and endurance. In this stat, there's one that Zoro prospers in heavily compared to the other, and that is endurance. Zoro's durability is not all that, but it's his endurance that is crazy. I said his durability isn't all that because we've seen what insane durability is, like Big Mom, Kaido, Sanji. Zoro's been stabbed by a hockey list scythe before, but what he has is insane endurance. He took that stab from the scythe, but used it to his advantage. That's not even relevant because we have way better feats to go over. Like him defending against ocean sovereignty for a second and breaking almost all of his bones in his body, but then getting up and continuing on to scar Kaido. This is easily the most stupid feat in One Piece. If all his bones are broken, he shouldn't even be able to move his arms, let alone hold the weight of his swords and scar Kaido, but somehow Zoro does. Yeah, I don't know what Oda was cooking making this happen, but hey, that's more Zoro hype. Finally, we have hacks and versatility. Zoro has all 3 forms of Haki, one of them being Advanced conquers Haki. This is the most overpowered power-up in all of One Piece, giving you top tier AP no matter who the hell you are. With it, he's able to do more damage than anything he's thrown before. Mind you, he scarred Kaido before, as well as possibly being able to damage King with his flames on, who is more durable than Kaido himself. So yeah, Zoro is kinda busted, but Katakuri has a lot in his kit as well. So who would come out on top? Well, let's find out. This battle will take place in the mirror world without Brûlé. Same rules as always. Whoever dies or gets knocked out first loses. So let's go and simulate the fight. Play the Budokai music. The fight starts and Zoro rushes towards Katakuri. Katakuri has one of those shock face panels with the lines and Zoro hits him. How could this even happen to Katakuri? He's a Future Sight user. Well, let's get this straight first of all. Future Sight is not invincible. In chapter 1001, after Luffy damages Kaido, Kaido blisses Luffy through his Future Sight, meaning if you're fast enough, you'll bypass Future Sight. Now the question is how Zoro will be able to bypass this. Well, we've seen Zoro exhibit speed relative to a hybrid Kaido. That Kaido being faster than his base self, who blitzed Luffy on the rooftop. I emphasize the Luffy on the rooftop because that Luffy is completely different from himself at the beginning of the arc. Luffy on the rooftop is stated by Kaido himself that Luffy is now putting up a decent fight. Luffy now can react to the Bagawa but wasn't fast enough to dodge. Compare that to him at the beginning of Wano where he didn't even get a panel of his reaction to Kaido blitzing him because Kaido was just that much faster than him. And that Luffy is stronger and faster than the Luffy Katakuri was going blow for blow with. And so I think it should be quite obvious that Zoro has the capabilities of blitzing Katakuri through his Future Sight. But will his attacks do any damage? That's what someone in denial would ask, because there's zero way Katakuri is tanking a Conqueror's Coding attack from Zoro. Katakuri, who got damaged by base fatigue Luffy and Oven? Yeah, right. In fact, that attack would literally kill him the moment it comes into contact with him because he's such a glass cannon. There's nothing more to it. Katakuri gets blitzed in one shot. Damn, all that versatility, all that Future Sight and Devil Fruit mastery, and he still couldn't dethrone the King of Hell. In conclusion, Zoro slams Katakuri with zero difficulty. Katakuri doesn't have the speed or durability to hold a candle to the minority hunter himself. Anyways, if you did end up enjoying this, consider leaving a like and subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.